Call the Affordability Committee meeting to order, and this meeting is being held in person and electronically in accordance with the Municipal Act. Tonight we have 3 public meetings that are being held, and if you're joining the meeting virtually and have not yet registered and wish to speak, please email cityclerks@barrie.ca and staff will email you the information to participate virtually. The first public meeting is to review an application submitted by Weston Consulting on behalf of Black Creek Vespra GP Inc. for an amendment to the zoning bylaw to permit a 36-story mixed-use development. The subject lands are municipally known as 22, 28, and 34 Vespra Street and 97 and 101 Bradford Street. The second public meeting is to review an application submitted by Innovative Planning Solutions on behalf of 28200485 Ontario Inc. for a zoning bylaw amendment to permit a residential development. The subject lands are municipally known as 12 Ottaway Avenue. And the third public meeting is to review an application submitted by Malone Given Parsons on behalf of DIV Development Barrie Limited for an amendment to the zoning bylaw to permit a 1,030 residential unit plan of subdivision. The subject lands are municipally known as 1080 Lockhart Road. Members of the committee will be listening to the presentations and comments received during the public meetings, but will not be making comments or debating the items tonight. Committee members will have an opportunity to provide comments when the staff reports are considered by General Committee at a later date. Interested persons wishing notifications of staff reports can sign the notification form at the back of the council chambers or by email at cityclerks@barrie.ca. Michelle Banfield, Executive Director of the Development Services, would you please confirm that the notifications were conducted in accordance with the Planning Act for tonight's public meeting?
Yes, Chair Harris, it was.
Thank you. So now for our first public meeting, I believe I know the consultants are presenting virtually. I will now call upon Michael Vanny and Ulysses Percunder of Weston Consulting to provide the presentation concerning the zoning bylaw amendment application 22, 28, and 34 Vespra Street and 97 and 101 Bradford Street, Barrie. We all look up.
Just to confirm if everyone's able to see the slideshow.
We can see you.
Oh, okay, perfect. Awesome. Good evening, Chair, members, staff, and valued community members. My name is Ulysses Percunder, and I'm a planner with Weston Consulting. I'm joined by Michael Vanny, who is the principal planner on this file, and will be responding to any questions or comments. We are here to speak on behalf of the owners of the lands municipally known as 97 and 101 Bradford Street and 22, 28, and 34 Vespra Street. The purpose of this presentation is to provide an overview of the development application and receive feedback from council and the public. The applicant is seeking to rezone the lands with site-specific exceptions to permit the development of a 36-story mixed-use building with ground floor retail. A virtual community meeting for this proposal was previously held on November 28, 2023, and we hope to continue building on that communication here tonight. In preparing this application, various technical studies have been undertaken with support of a comprehensive multidisciplinary team, including transportation engineering from Paradigm, architectural services from Studio JCI, and landscape design from Land Art Design. Obviously, you all know the community well, but to provide context, this site is located in the downtown waterfront area at the northeast corner of the Bradford and Vespra Street intersection, just south of Bunkers Creek. The site is comprised of 4 parcels with a total area of 4,121 square meters, or just over 1 acre. The site is located within the urban growth center and along an intensification corridor, where the highest levels of height, growth, and intensification in Barrie are focused. There's a minimum population target of 150 people and jobs per hectare, with a vision for achieving a complete community through mixed-use built forms, such as the development being proposed. Furthermore, the official plan designates the site high density, permitting a mix of residential, institutional, and commercial land uses, with a minimum density target of 300 units per hectare. Moving on to the zoning bylaw, the site is Zone C4, general commercial, permitting a mix of commercial, institutional, and minimal residential uses, with no maximum gross floor area. As mentioned earlier, the proposed development is a 36-story mixed-use high-rise building with a gross floor area of 27,925 square meters. 374 square meters of retail space is located at grade, fronting the intersection as seen on the concept. The building will contain 462 total units, comprised of 371 single-bedroom dwellings and 91 larger units containing 2 or 3 bedrooms. 320 vehicular parking spaces are located within the podium at a rate of 0.69 per unit, and 587 bicycle parking spaces are provided, including 531 located indoors, which reflects a rate of 1.27 per unit. So I think it's frozen on the slide. Just one moment. We might jump ahead a bit, just given how many times I clicked it, but pending that, the primary residential lobby access and indoor amenity space is located along Vesper Street, achieving an active streetscape, while as shown on the previous slide, retail space fronts the southwest corner of the site, with a focus along Bradford Street. Here, there's a 7-meter road widening, also accommodated. Parking and loading areas are accessible from Vesper Street, located away from the streetscape at the rear, while a landscape buffer is provided along each of the side yards. Here we have a conceptual rendering of the Bradford Street frontage with elements reflecting the vision for how this space will eventually look. These include a strong retail presence along Bradford Street with both access and window views from what will be an urbanized streetscape. The podium material is designed to screen internal parking and animate the streetscape, drawing inspiration from features of the McLaren Arts Center, which is also located in downtown Barrie. One moment, sorry. Just have to figure out the slide thing. Okay, there we go. So there's 9,139 square meters of amenity space included in the development, which is a rate of 19.78 square meters per unit. In addition to the private balconies, which are included with all units, 1,520 square meters of common outdoor space with views of surrounding features, including the lake, downtown Barrie, and Bunkers Creek, will be integrated into the tower stepbacks. 433 square meters of indoor amenity space is also provided on the ground level, with more specific details of programming and design being determined through the site plan stage. Given the proposed height and importance of climate change, the developer is committed to providing not only a high-quality building design, but also a high level of sustainability and adherence to sustainability guidelines. The technical project team executed a high-level review, identifying measures that are currently being considered and will be addressed in more detail through the site plan process. Some of these measures that are being considered, as shown on screen, include insulated glazing on the window walls, permeable landscape buffers with pollinator-friendly plantings, and bicycle parking provided at grade. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment seeks to rezone the site to the C1 Central Area Commercial Zone, with site-specific exceptions including a building height of 122 meters, gross floor area of 741% of the lot area, parking rate of 0.69 spaces per dwelling unit, a 9% coverage for commercial uses, and a 2.05 meter landscape buffer along the rear lot line. To provide some context on the timing of this development application, the formal submission was made on September 11th of this year, with review by departments and external commenting agencies currently ongoing. Once this feedback is provided, the project team will undertake the process of addressing any matters raised through resubmissions, and once all items have been addressed, staff will prepare a final recommendation report for the application to be considered by the Affordability Committee and City Council. Thank you to everyone for the time and this opportunity. Just as a reminder, Michael Vanny, the principal planner for this application, is on the line and will be responding to any questions. I hope that you all have a wonderful evening.
Great, thank you. I will now call upon Christian Ramprasad, planner from the Development Services Department, to provide an update on the status of the applications.
Good evening, Chair Harris and members of the Affordability Committee. Further to Mr. Vanny and Mr. Perkunder's presentation, please be advised that planning staff are currently reviewing the submitted zoning bylaw amendment application. In addition to the presentation by the applicant's planning consultant and the memo provided to Planning Committee, I will provide an update regarding the status of the application, comments received from the public, and the primary planning and land use matters being considered by staff at this time. Just to recap, the subject lands are currently zoned general commercial, and a zoning bylaw amendment is required to rezone the entirety of the subject lands to central area commercial with special provisions, to permit the proposed use and implement appropriate site-specific development standards that will allow the site to develop as proposed under the current in effect zoning bylaw 2009-141. A neighborhood meeting was held virtually through the Zoom platform on November 28, 2023. There were approximately 34 attendees, including Ward 2 Councillor Craig Nixon and city planning staff. Comments and concerns were provided by residents at the meeting, and the matters under review include parking and how the parking ratio will affect the final parking supply that is made available, concerns regarding traffic that will result in the development, building height and how it will fit into the character of the existing neighborhood, and concerns about the proposed increase in density, gross floor area, and associated privacy concern for adjacent properties. The applications are currently under review by planning staff, the city's technical review departments, and external agencies. The primary planning and land use matters being considered by staff at this time include compliance with the provincial policy and city official plan and the zoning bylaw, potential impacts on the development due to the proximity of Bunkers Creek and the associated floodplain, site servicing, grading, and stormwater management as it relates to conformity with city standards, traffic impacts, environmental concerns, pedestrian circulation, and access and site design, justification and appropriateness of the requested site-specific provisions, and the compatibility and consistency of the proposed development with the existing and anticipated development in the area. All comments received during the technical review process, as well as the comments provided at the public meeting, will be included and addressed in the staff report that is targeted to be brought forward in the first half of 2025 for general committee's consideration of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. All submission materials and key dates associated with the subject applications are available online for viewing on the city's development projects webpage under Ward 2. Alternatively, you may contact myself directly. Thank you for your attention.
Great, thank you. We'll now move to public comments, and I do believe we have some people registered in person. And also, if there are members of the public who wish to provide comments, please approach the podium and begin by stating your first and last name and address for the record. But now we'll invite Bonnie Carter, if you're here. Oops. Okay. Mr. Doug Lougheed, thank you. Please begin by stating your first and last name and your address for the record.
Thank you, Chair Harris. The previous person, Bonnie Carter, she may be online. She lives in the same building complex that I do, so hopefully I can cover some of the points that she will. Chair Harris, Mayor Nuttall, and members of council. I don't intend to do a rehash of what I did a couple of months ago with the application on Bradford Street. I can't remember what the actual file number was, but where Napa, Barrie Auto Care, and the Foot Clinic were. But many of the same things are applicable. And I did submit a letter after the neighborhood meeting to Celeste Cemetery that I believe council probably has now, because I followed up with her today on it. So there's a couple additional things that I wanted to bring to council's attention. The staff member talked about the issues that were raised at the neighborhood meeting, which I was part of, and he covered that, and I expect that planning staff will go through that pretty rigorously and take those into account. One thing I will note, and I know staff is aware of it, but it's a little bit of a, I'm going to call it, for lack of a better word, a size issue. You know, the presentation talks about it being on 1.02 acres of land. But as we know, that's the existing boundaries today. The urbanization of Bradford Street is going to take probably a couple of meters away from that to reduce even the size that's being talked about there. So we'll take it under 1 acre. So I know staff is aware of that, but it's just kind of a little play on things that the larger they can get for this size of a development, it probably looks better. Not in my mind, but it looks better. The second thing, the thing I want to point out too is I fully realize that, and I think most of the people that live in Nautica, where I live, they recognize that there's going to be some building and some larger buildings that are going to take place on this particular site. However, not to the extent of 36 stories. So dealing with the parking issue, and I know the staff is going to look at it, but I think the applicant is asking for a revision to have 0.69 parking spaces per unit rather than the city standard of 1 that currently exists, or a reduction of 142 parking spaces. The other site that I talked about, and I know this isn't part of this application, but it's actually worse than this one is, where they've asked for a parking reduction of 4.35, which is a reduction of 517 parking spaces just around the corner from this development, or a total of almost 700 parking spaces that there's no parking spaces for cars for. And I can tell you, and I will offer it, I think I offered to Councillor Nixon after the neighborhood meeting in an email, and Celeste as well, to by all means visit me at Nautica, where I live, which is immediately adjacent to the site. And don't visit now because the snowbirds are away, but you have to visit in May. I can take you through the building and show you how many cars that we have in the building where it's full, and how many cars, and if they want to come at 10 o'clock at night sometime and on a weekend, I'll show you that there's considerable cars in the visitor parking spaces, because the 0.69 parking spaces that are being sought here don't include, they're 145 short of 1 per unit. They don't include any parking space for service vehicles. We probably have about eight service vehicles a day. People have plumbing issues, they have this and that, and they come in. So this building, this project has approximately, is almost twice as big. So that's going to have proportionate more service vehicles there. No place for them to, and now you've got also commercial space on site where there's no, or retail space, no places to park for that. So hopefully staff are going to look at that really vigorously, because I think it's the other development I talked about, there's lots of empty spaces around. I know that there's going to be more buildings in the area, and it's just going to be a cumulative effect all the way along. The last thing I wanted to bring to your attention, and I didn't have this in the letter, and I didn't hear it mentioned at the public meeting a couple of months ago, nor was it in my communication or anything else. I have noticed that services. So at Nautica, we have garbage pickup, we have recycling pickup, we have compost pickup, and we have, those are the 3. And all of those things are taken out of the building and put on Nautica property in the circle. And that's where they're all picked up by the appropriate trucks and agencies that pick it up. So there's no impact to city streets. Now, I've noticed with the newest condo project on Dunlop Street, it's not bad, but all of their stuff, composting, recycling, garbage, has to be all come out onto the building. There is no room on site for garbage trucks, et cetera, to come in and pick up stuff. So what happens? It goes out on the city street. I know there's some yellow hash marks there. Maybe in the planning process they were allowed to have that. But this building, as part of this application, is smaller, on a smaller site, and with about 3 times the number of residences that the newest condo project on Dunlop Street has. So that's just going to aggravate the situation. I think in the planning process that the planning staff should make sure that all of this stuff has to stay on the developer's on the applicant's property and not impact city streets. So hopefully that can be taken into account. So, and my final remarks are just that, again, I think parking's the biggest issue. I think that a number of things can be solved in terms of everybody's comments that you've received by sticking to one parking space per unit. I know the applicant mentioned about that he's got 500 plus bike racks in there. I'm pretty sure they work in downtown Toronto, and I'm pretty sure they live in condos or small apartments down in downtown Toronto, and they don't realize that Barrie has snow, and bikes just aren't going to work in January and February and March. So anyways, we'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. If there are any other members who wish to provide comments, you can please approach the podium and begin by stating your name first and last and address for the record. And not seeing anyone. I'm confirming there's nobody waiting virtually. Sorry, Ms. Cook, nobody's waiting virtually. Okay, thank you. So now I'd like to invite Ward 2 Councillor Nixon. Do you have any questions of clarification?
Thank you, Chair Harris. No, I do not have any questions. I've familiar with the process, familiar with residents' concerns, and I look forward to the staff report.
Great, thank you. So if anybody has any further written comments, you can submit them to Christian Rampersaud in the Development Service Department at christian.rampersaud@barrie.ca.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mayor Nuttall.
Through yourself to the clerk, and I've written an email on this. I just want to ask, what would it take to change the procedural bylaw so when planners are coming to speak to residents, they actually show up?
Through you, Chair Harris, to Mayor Nuttall, we would have to do a motion of council or an item for discussion, or I would have to write a staff report requesting an amendment to the procedural bylaw to enact that.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll follow up afterwards, and maybe we can draft something for the new year.
Great, thank you. So we will now begin with our second public meeting. So I will now call upon Cynthia Daffern of Innovative Planning Solutions Incorporated to provide the presentation concerning the zoning bylaw amendment application 12 Ottawa Avenue, Barrie.
Okay, so good evening. My name is Cynthia Daffern from Innovative Planning Solutions. With me today is my colleague Kyle Galvin, who is attending virtually. We are here representing the property owner for this project, and the project we're discussing today is 12 Ottawa Avenue. Next slide, please. So the subject lands, as I mentioned, are located at 12 Ottawa Avenue. The property consists of one residential lot, and it should be noted that the lands are currently vacant. Next slide, please. As some background, this project has been in the application phase since 2022. A neighborhood meeting was performed in March of 2023. Generally, the concerns identified by the surrounding neighbors included concerns related to density, traffic, and neighborhood character. These concerns were addressed to the extent possible by the planning justification report submitted as part of the zoning bylaw amendment application in September of 2024. The application was deemed complete in October. Next slide, please. So the purpose of this zoning bylaw amendment application is to rezone and sever the lands to permit 2 single detached dwellings. It should be noted that the design of the proposed dwellings seen here in yellow are preliminary and will be finalized during the detailed design phase. Next slide, please. So the surrounding uses include low-density single detached dwellings along Ottaway Avenue, Highway 400 to the north, and Barrie North Collegiate to the south. The site is also within walking distance to parks and local amenities. Oakley Park Public School with an attached park is located to the southeast, MacMorrison Park to the east, commercial plazas on both Cundles and Bell Farm to the east, and Barrie Public Library to the south. Next slide, please. The lot statistics and breakdowns are provided here with a conceptual sketch of what the homes may look like. Once again, these are just for illustrative purposes. The houses will be designed at a future stage. Though the proposed project is for 2 single detached dwellings only, the application seeks to rezone the lands to R4 in order to accommodate the increased density. And the proposed houses will meet all requirements of the R4 zone, so no special provisions are requested. Next slide, please. So the lands are designated neighborhood area and currently zoned residential single detached dwelling second density, or R2. No changes are proposed to the official plan designation. Next slide, please. The City of Barrie third draft zoning bylaw was released by the city in 2024. The proposed zone for this site is neighborhood low 1. Under the draft bylaw, houses, townhouses, and low-rise buildings are permitted as of right, and low impact intensification is permitted. Next slide, thank you. Several reports and studies were completed and submitted as part of the formal application, including the planning justification report, the site and concept plan, the geotechnical review, the arborist assessment, the grading and drainage plan, and the water service supply/demand analysis. These studies were identified as required by the city during the pre-consultation phase. They were completed by professionals, including arborists, engineers, and planners. They have already been reviewed by the city, by the respective departments to ensure accuracy, and there are no outstanding studies at this time. Next slide, please. To conclude, the proposed zoning bylaw amendment would permit the development of 2 dwellings at 12 Ottaway Avenue. It would also facilitate the severance of the 1 lot into 2 lots for a total of 1 new lot. Both provincial and municipal policies support infill development and appropriate intensification within the built-up area. And the proposed helps with the current housing crisis by providing more housing in an area with existing infrastructure to support it. Overall, the development aligns with both provincial and municipal policy and objectives, and we believe that it constitutes good planning. Next slide, please. Thank you very much for your time tonight. Kyle and I will be happy to answer any questions or address any concerns at this time. Thank you.
And thank you. I will now call upon Rachel Mulholland, planner from the Development Services Department, to provide an update on the status of the application.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Harris and members of Affordability Committee. In addition to the presentation by the applicant's planning consultant, Ms. Cynthia Daffern from Innovative Planning Solutions, a memorandum was provided to committee to describe the application. As identified in the memo and Ms. Daffern's presentation, a neighborhood meeting for this application was held virtually on March 7th, 2023, with 22 participants, including the ward councillor, attending, where feedback was provided relating to the following: concerns about possible overdevelopment and taxing aging infrastructure, concerns about the increased demand for on-street parking, concerns about emergency services access around the cul-de-sac, and concerns were raised about spot rezoning and setting a precedent. Concerns were also raised about adding students to local schools that are already over capacity and about the perceived loss of property value. There was also inquiries received about the timeline for the project. Staff are currently reviewing the application for compliance with provincial planning policy and the city's official plan, efficient use of land and resources that optimize the use of existing services and infrastructure, integration of the proposed development in the surrounding residential area, including the preservation of private and shared boundary vegetation, impacts that the development may have on traffic operations in the area, and compliance with city standards. A detailed analysis of these considerations and site-specific zoning provisions will be provided when a staff report is brought forward for General Committee's consideration. Staff will continue to work with the applicant to address the feedback received through the public consultation process, as well as comments raised through the analysis of these applications by technical staff and our agency partners. A staff report providing a recommendation to General Committee on the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application is anticipated to be brought forward in the first quarter of 2025. If approved, a subsequent application for consent or part lot control will be required to separately convey each lot. The submission materials and key dates associated with the application, along with my contact information, are available for viewing online on the city's proposed developments webpage under Ward 2. Thank you, Chair Harris and members of the Affordability Committee and the public. If you have any questions, I would be happy to address them at this time or following comments from the public. Thank you.
Great, and thank you. And we'll now move to public comment, and I do see that we have one person registered to speak in person and one also virtually. And so I'll just make a note as well that if there are members of the public who wish to provide comments, please approach the podium and begin by stating your first and last name and address for the record. So I'd like to now invite John Fisher to provide comments. Please again begin by stating your first and last name and your address for the record. Thank you.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is John Fisher. I live at 10 Ottaway Avenue along with my wife. Good evening, everyone. Chair Harris, Mayor Alex Nuttall, and our councillors. So the City of Barrie pledged to minister municipal affairs and housing to facilitate the construction of 23,000 units by 2031. By the end of 2023, there was 14,641 housing units approved, leaving a difference of 8,359. The City of Barrie action items addressed the above are as follows. Collaborate with development industry partners, 3,900 units. Re-examine existing development approvals, 1,400 units. New foundation programs such as churches, 1,500 units. Promote the creation of additional residential units, 1,800. Community improvement plan, CIP, prorated to 2031, 434 units for a total of 9,034 units, which is a surplus of the 23,000 goal of 675 units. Regarding application number D30-20, 2024, the leadership at the City of Barrie does have an important decision to make regarding the long-term quality of living in the City of Barrie. The presentation is not a NIMBY, not in my backyard issue. We acknowledge there is a need for housing in the City of Barrie. We also acknowledge with a surplus of 675 units under the current planning directives, severe scrutiny must be put in place as to where the increased density is approved. The west end of Ottaway Avenue in Barrie started to be established in the 1960s. For over 65 years, the street has offered several generations of families to raise their children in a safe and non-congested environment. The change to zoning from R2 to R4 for 12 Ottaway Avenue and allowing not one but 2 units to be built on 33-foot lots, and then to have the potential to have garden suites built in the backyard of each of these 2 is certainly a negative paradigm shift for the area. With future growth in the City of Barrie, neighborhoods that are not overly congested will be an attraction for a quality living environment. A solution after declining this zoning application would be as follows. Have the City of Barrie planners better scrutinize where residential intensification locations are made. For example, use a high-rise dwelling instead of changing the complete fabric of an existing residential street. Precedent has already been established with this, in Barrie with a 32-story high-rise apartment building on Dunlop Street. We support a single detached unit being built at the location of 12 Ottaway Avenue, Barrie, as this would completely line up with the current residential design of the west end of the street, thus allowing a family to take advantage of an open lot that is not being currently used as a dwelling. In conclusion, with the zoning at 12 Ottaway Avenue is changed to R4, the owner of the property, the development of the property, the City of Barrie planners, politicians don't have to deal with the changing culture of this currently wonderful residential street. However, after these units are built and multiple families move in, the inevitable complaints such as traffic congestion, vehicles parked on the street, noise, etc., which have already been addressed or brought up, will be directed to inevitably our City of Police Barrie and our politicians as well. Leadership of the City of Barrie has a real opportunity to reach their goal of 23,000 units without disrupting a well-established neighborhood that requires almost zero police and fire department presence. One thing I didn't submit in my notes, I did speak with this morning with a local property management company, the owner, who manages 1,000 units, and he currently has a 10% vacancy rate on 1,000 units of what they manage. So there is certainly availability out there. So those are my remarks. Thank you.
And thank you. And before we go to our virtual individual, is there any other members of the public who'd like to make comment? Okay, and thank you. So seeing none, there was one person pre-registered to speak virtually. It is Pamela Watt. Do we have Miss Watt?
Yes. Yes, I'm here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. My name's Pamela Watt, and I'm one of the residents of Ottaway Avenue. Initially, I just want to give a bit of history that plot of land known as 12 Ottaway was once designated as to be a roadway access. It never happened. It remained vacant over the years. And then in light, it was bought by this person. I have lived on the street, I'm going to say, most of my life. And a number of people have lived almost the same amount of time. They've been here for many, many years. As mentioned by the speaker before, it's a well sought after neighborhood, family neighborhood. It's quiet, it's safe. Basically, I won't repeat a lot of things that he has said. We are all in agreement for a single dwelling. We feel that having two residences is going to impact on that small piece of land, going to impact the infrastructure of our street. And it may have been looked at, but increased traffic, sewer. It's going to put a big strain on the system of existing. So that means the city's going to have to replace everything to ensure that it can be managed. Again, looking at other potentially houses or units being built behind is also another concern that all of us have on this. And, you know, it was presented first as a one residential, and now this person has come back as two, wanting to put two residences on this. And I question his why. And yes, we all know there's intensification, but it doesn't need to happen and disrupt a well-established neighborhood. And there's other areas that can be intensified. So I look at it as possibly maybe greed of this person trying to make more income on one piece of land. I have no idea. That's just my impression. And just there's been no thought. So a lot of our housing prices on the street will decrease by this person if it's allowed to go ahead and sever this land. There's no reason why we need to disrupt this area. As mentioned, more vehicles. And I'm just trying to see that. Yeah, just as I said, most of us would be in agreement of a single dwelling. So I'm curious to ask why this person now finds he wants to put two residences on the street and ruin a well sought after neighborhood. And, you know, it's unfortunate, but I see the city of Barrie disintegrating well-established neighborhoods that people want to live in. And there's no, basically, no one listening to those of us that live in these areas that want to remain having them well sought after and quiet neighborhoods and safe for our children and grandchildren to be coming here. And anyways, I think that's what the speaker, my neighbor, has said previously. I agree 100%. And I really hope the city of Barrie will not rezone this and consider looking at the welfare of people. And it's not all about squishing people on a piece of land. It's all about our livelihood, our social, our mental health, everything that builds a community. And it's, you know, if we can build intensification elsewhere, I understand we need to have it, but You don't need to wreck existing neighborhoods to do that. And I think that's about all I have to say. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your comments. We'll now move to Ward 2 Councillor Nixon. Do you have any questions of clarification?
Thank you, Chair Harris, through you. Yeah, I actually drove by there earlier today. I've been up and down the street many times, but I wanted to take a quick look. My question, I guess, is, and I did look at the plans, but I couldn't find, and I'll address this to the representative from IPS. What is the proposed height of these buildings? Because you put two buildings on that one lot, it's not a very, it's a normal size lot, but by the time you put two buildings on there and then a driveway down the middle, I don't know, are they looking at 3 stories, 4 stories? What is the plan?
Through you, Chair Harris, to the councillor. There's no sort of detailed design regarding the houses yet. That's going to come at a later stage. I don't know what they're exactly planning, but what I can say is that it's all within the R4 zoning for single detached dwellings, so no special provisions are required. So the limit of the R4 zone will be adhered to.
Go ahead, Michelle, sorry.
Through you, Chair Harris, to Councillor Nixon. So 10 meters is the maximum building height in that zone. And depending on the topography, you would see most likely 2 stories, sometimes depending on the topography, like 2.5 stories. But that is a standard height in our residential zones.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you, Councillor Nixon. If anyone has any further written comments, you can submit them to Rachel Mulholland in the Development Services Department at rachel.mulholland@barrie.ca. This now brings us to our third public meeting. So now I will now call upon Matthew Corey from Malone Given Parsons to provide the presentation concerning the zoning bylaw amendment application 1080 Lockhart Road, Barrie.
Good evening, Chair Harris, Mayor Nuttall, and members of council, and to the public. It's my pleasure to be here tonight. I've already got control, and I advanced the slide. My name is Matthew Corey. I'm with the planning firm Malone Given Parsons. I am the planner for the applicant, Div Development Barrie, and this is on 1080 Lockhart Road. Just to go, let's see if I can, there we go. So the subject lands are shown here. We're north of Lockhart Road, south of Mapleview, and west of 20th Side Road. This is the very eastern end of the former Hewitt secondary plan area. So this is one of the newer areas that was brought into Barrie not so long ago, and this represents one of the latest subdivisions to come forward in this area as well. The site is approximately 80 hectares in size. It's currently zoned agricultural and natural heritage, and surrounding uses, of course, are agricultural, natural heritage, and future residential in the Hewitt secondary plan to the west and to the north. And of course, the town of Innisfil, this is the boundary. So the town of Innisfil is to the east and to the south. We have a proposed draft plan. A little background on this before I get going. We had been working on this. I personally have been working on this file since 2012. And the draft plan, we were working on getting something submitted going back to 2019. In 2022, we made our first application under the city's new process. This is the conformity review process. We then proceeded to make 2 more submissions over 2023 and early part of this year in response to comments from staff and working closely with your staff on this application. Over the time, of course, we've had, I'm going to say, many planning changes from our provincial government, of course, as well as the planning policy regime, Your official plan was approved, and now your comprehensive zoning bylaw is going forward. So this plan has evolved a bit through all of that, and we've responded to many of the things that have come up through all those processes. What you have before you in summary is a draft plan that implements the new Barrie official plan. You can see, this is hard to read, and I have another graphic coming up that's a lot easier to read. I'll just give a summary of the land use here. Predominantly, the plan consists of 11-meter single detached lots, these and 7.6-meter semi-detached lots. It's anticipated to be that. Those are two-car garage singles generally. There are a number of street townhouses throughout the plan, and especially on the south end of the plan and at the north end as well, along Lockhart and Mapleview, there are some more intense forms or more dense forms of townhouses, both back-to-back townhouses in the south, as well as medium density blocks in the north that could provide a mix and range of different housing. So this very much aligns with provincial policy as well as your city's official plan to have a mix and range of housing options, and to especially, while providing the housing that's needed at a grade-related level, provide a range and mix, especially of houses that could be more attainable to residents as well. We were, of course, as well required to provide stormwater management. There are two storm management ponds, one at the north end and one right in the center on the east side of the plan. You can see there's a big block in the center for natural heritage. That is, as per your official plan, the natural heritage system, which is in this case comprised of watercourse as well as a wooded area. That is being protected from development. It has been studied appropriately, and the appropriate buffers are also being provided. There is a natural heritage channel across the north end of the plan, but that is it's a channel that is obviously agreed to with the city in terms of where its location would be and the surrounding developers. And then the main roads bisect the plan. There's especially this one road that goes east-west, just north of that natural heritage system. That road has been designed to work with the topography and with the plan area itself. And then the other major features are one school, as per the official plan in the south end, with a park right next to it. And then in the north end, two parkettes are being shown, one in the very center of the residential area, and one actually in the medium density area, which we think is very important if there's a fair amount of people there, that they have amenity space and they have parkland that they can use as well. So that is the summary overall of the uses within it. In terms of the density range, the policy that applies to this land is provides for at least a minimum of 55 people and jobs per hectare. Currently, the plan has a range in it, the way it's proposed. There would be approximately a range of 58 to 70, just over 70 people and jobs per hectare. So we're doing a bit more and a bit better than what the minimum density was in the official plan. Again, most of those units, or quite a few of them, are single and semi-detached units. And you can see the breakout on this slide of that. There's also work at home jobs that are anticipated here, as well as jobs from the school. And that totals to the combined people and jobs per hectare. There is also a potential phasing and lotting plan. It's a fairly big plan. It won't build out in one go. So you can see the green areas at the top end of the plan are where development would start. It would start at the top and generally go from north to south. The blue area would be the second phase. Orange being the next one, the third phase. And we made sure as part of that phase to make sure the school block and the storm pond are there, so that when that block starts to get built, the residents are having the school and the park delivered in a timely way. And then, of course, the last phase being the purple, and then the very last being the red. And the reason for that, I will get into in another slide or two, but the official plan land use designation is generally neighborhood area. You know, there's a mix and range in the official plan of housing types that's permitted in that designation, that we are proposing housing types that conform to that. The natural heritage system, as I mentioned, is protected. You can see that in the green over the site. The green space blocks I always find it, and especially for the public, it's good to explain this. Those aren't green space in terms of natural heritage system. Those are green spaces in general. So those would incorporate stormwater management ponds that were anticipated by the Hewitt secondary plan and background work, as well as the parks that would be anticipated. And we've generally provided the parks in the locations and the school, as you can see in the blue there, in the location as per the official plan. One or two of the storm ponds have moved around a bit, but that is permitted by the policies of the plan. And of course, that's dictated more by the physical realities of the site as opposed to the policy context. I'm just citing here the policy as well. It's a site-specific policy that was approved ultimately into your official plan for this property because it's at the very edge of the Hewitt secondary plan. It allows it to have single and semi-detached units, all forms of townhouses, and the minimum density of 55, which we're surpassing. I won't dwell on this. This is natural heritage. I did talk about this. This is just the detailed mapping. So you can see that both the high constraint stream corridor as well as the natural core, as per your official plan, has been identified properly and protected. There is an archaeological site. It's called the McDonald site. That is a former, it's a Huron-Wendat village that is located predominantly north of Mapleview off our property, but there is a portion of it that anticipated would be on our property. That is subject to continued and ongoing archaeological work. Stage 3 work is being undertaken and completed continually now. And ultimately, no development could happen on that area or any area related to that archaeological site until a phase 4 archaeological work had been completed. Accordingly, and this is showing the impact on the draft plan, you can see the area on the left side in a red hatching with a yellow outline. That is both the area being studied as well as the buffer around it. And on the east side, you can see that's it on the color draft plan. Just to blow up the image a bit, that is the McDonald Archaeological Site in the orange hatching right now. There is a pumping station that is required for development in this whole area, not just by this developer, but by the other developers. That is outside of that area, and it's on the very east side of this block. In the most current draft plan, and I should note that the draft plan that is before the public is a slightly older draft plan. The most current draft plan has and will show that as a future development block, and it will be obviously subject to provisions requiring that nothing can happen there until the proper archaeological work has been completed to the ministry's acceptance. Just briefly on the Innisfil zoning, it's currently obviously in the Innisfil zoning bylaw, being former annex lands bylaw 0504, generally permits ag and rural uses. The proposed zoning amendment, and this is again proposed as per your existing bylaw, not the comprehensive zoning bylaw that is being considered by the city, would zone the site accordingly with current standards. That's generally the R5 zone, neighborhood residential zone, as well as open space zones for the stormwater management blocks, the environmental protection, of course, for the environmental areas, education and institution for the school site, and then for the medium density areas, it would be neighborhood multiple residential RM3 with a site-specific exception. These are the zone standards. I won't go through all of them, but they're very typical zone standards and generally consistent with the zoning that is currently in place in these zones, but also with the direction that the city is going in its comprehensive zoning bylaw. The last public meeting, the question on was height. For most of it, it's 3 stories, which is in keeping with the official plan permissions for the single and semi-detached dwellings, and 4 stories for townhouse and medium density dwellings. The other standards are there. They're fairly standard relative to the zone. And then, of course, the OS zone, the open for the stormwater management, the EP, the natural heritage OS, and the IE zone, again, with fairly standard provisions as per your bylaws. Thank you. I'm really happy to be here tonight. It's been a long journey. Very eager to hear from the public and get comments so that we can move forward in a timely way. And very happy to answer any questions if there are any.
And thank you. I will now call upon Tyler Butler, Planner for Development Services Department, to provide an update on the status of the application.
Good evening, Chair Harris and members of the Affordability Committee. Thank you to Matthew for giving that presentation detailing the application. A memorandum was also provided to committee to describe the application, and I will provide an update regarding the status of those applications and the primary land use matters being considered by staff at this time. So the purpose of the amendment is to facilitate the associated approval of a draft plan of subdivision for the construction of the residential subdivision, including blocks for future school, open space park areas, and associated stormwater management. As is standard in our secondary plan areas, a neighborhood meeting was not held, as all lands located within 240 meters of the subject property have either received draft plan approval for plans of subdivision or in the process of obtaining those approvals and/or registrations. Currently, the matters being reviewed by staff are compliance with provincial planning policy in the city's official plan and zoning bylaw, site servicing, grading, stormwater management as it relates to conformity with city standards in the master studies prepared for the former Hewitt secondary plan areas, protection of the natural heritage system and associated features on site, the efficient use of land and resources that optimize the use of existing and planned services and infrastructure, and an understanding of the functionality of the site as proposed, including, but not limited to, landscaping, amenities, pedestrian connectivity, safety, vehicular circulation, and compatibility and consistency of the proposed development with existing approvals and anticipated development in the area. Of course, all comments received during the technical review process, as well as comments provided at the public meeting, will be included and addressed in the staff report, which is being targeted to be brought forward sometime in the first quarter of 2025 for general committee's consideration. Of course, all submission materials and key dates associated with the applications are available for viewing on the city's proposed developments webpage under Ward 10. Alternatively, of course, you can always contact me directly. Thank you for your attention.
And thank you. I have a note, I have no members of the public pre-registered to speak in person or online. However, if there are members of the public who wish to provide comments, please approach the podium and begin by stating your first and last name and address for the record. Seeing none, I will now ask Ward 10 Councillor Hamilton, do you have any questions of clarification?
Thank you, and through you, Chair Harris. No questions or points of clarification from myself. I think you did an excellent presentation tonight, so thank you very much for that, and thanks to the staff update as well. I think this is very welcome in the community. From my perception, this is a very well thought out development, similar to other ones that we've seen on Lockhart. Over 1,000 residential units coming online, so I think we're just get the shovels in the ground. I think there's a great mix of densities here. We've got single homes, towns, semis, all in accordance with the neighborhood area within designated greenfield areas, as the presenter pointed out, which is great. Fantastic preservation of natural heritage, well thought out park block and school block. So again, I think residents in this community and in Barrie will be welcoming this type of development. So thank you.
And thank you. That ends our public meetings, and I believe our meetings, our other items, there's 000, which I believe takes us to adjournment. This concludes the Affordability Committee meeting at 7:01 p.m. Thank you.